Is it running?
Yeah, it is.
So this is take 2. Sadly, the video got.
And now we're gonna have to share again.
Yeah, we'll have to reshare the link. I'm thinking, I guess reshare the link to the previous video. Or are you gonna delete that?
I don't know. I don't know what to do with
it's still there.
Yeah, it's a thing. Retagging.
So annoying. So yeah, it barked again. We've been having this problem from Restream for quite a while, and we have sent tickets regarding it.
Well, just complaints, but not like ticket.
So yeah, we are rebooting the episode. If you are there, please join the new link that will appear.
So painful. So annoying. So I'll make the previous YouTube video unlisted. And then ay.
I don't know which one it is, so I'll just wait. I'm getting confused. Oh, there. Found the live now. Sorry about that to anyone who's watching. Yeah. That was frustrating. So we're resharing links and all that jazz. Yeah, that didn't work. The previous one.
Look for the one where I'm not smiling.
Yeah, it's running, but no one's commenting yet, so I don't know if people have seen the link. So I'm trying to boost the link back to them. Maybe I'll directly try sending it to those who we know were there earlier.
Well, and share. I guess and share the usual groups again. So painful. Jay said he would have listened if you were just audio, and I appreciate that. Although it would make a lousy YouTube video.
Yeah. Hey, Mitch. Glad to have you back. Sorry about that. We had to restart.
The joys of live entertainment. Hello, Kenny.
Belated Kenny. It was yesterday, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we just try again.
Thank you, Mitch, for letting us know audio's running fine.
Yeah, audio was actually fine even in the last video. It's the video that disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was that weird blink that we normally get at 10 p.m.
Hey,
and then now it's, well, we're back. So
we might as well start over. Just because.
With an intro and everything. Yeah, okay, sure.
As annoying as it is. This is take 2. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, it's probably not because this is the second time we're doing this video. But welcome to Baduy Pride, a little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us to talk about everything and anything random live again.
If it's not your first time here, which probably isn't, thank you so much for joining us again. Today's episode is all about podcasts, or at least it will try to be, because I actually don't watch that many podcasts. I don't listen to that many podcasts. And this is an episode that was suggested by,
RJ, who is not here.
or at least not yet.
Or maybe he was. We can't tell. Yeah, and sorry about the hiccup. It may happen again around 10 o'clock. We don't know what's been happening with Restream this week.
Mhm.
But we keep getting these long, blinky interruptions.
So yeah,
But yeah, so as you were saying earlier, is that why it's a sort of list of recommendations, because Toby really doesn't listen to podcasts. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, and it takes a significant amount of focus to decide to listen to a podcast.
yeah, I admit I'm more visual, so I kind of prefer playing, let's say, YouTube videos or masterclass or something like that. Podcasts are fine, but I find myself less able to focus on podcasts because I start getting judgy on how they use music or how they use this and that.
Because you're not judgy about how YouTube videos are put together and how they use visuals and
Typically, those I don't really care,
huh.
only because I don't expect much. But if it was, let's say, a formal show, because like there's a lot of YouTube videos I listen to wherein it's like weird documentary or
Mhm.
this and that, thoughts on this video game and stuff, and I don't really think about the quality. I just focus on the content. But then when I listen to podcasts, where they're trying to like add extra dimensions by adding sound effects or this and that, then I get a bit critical. And
I guess
That's
it
me.
really depends on what you're listening to.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. And then just how should we look up like how did podcasts start? Because it podcast always felt like off. I know it's bottle radio, right? It's
Mhm.
like it's like radio shows, but then they're not live broadcast. They're pre-recorded, whatnot.
So Wikipedia lists podcasts as episodic series of spoken word digital audio files that the user can download to a personal device for easy listening. Streaming applications and services provide convenient integrated ways to manage the podcast consumption queue across podcast sources and playback devices.
Yeah, so I know the like in the beginning, like one of the main drivers for podcasts were things like iPods.
Mhm.
Because you would download, not just music to your iPod, but you'd also download podcasts, and then you could listen to this
Yeah.
content. So it's
And-
like listening to radio style content, but offline.
And the root of the word does come from iPod and broadcast being combined. The term was first suggested by The Guardian, and it was invented. The term was invented back in 2004 as part of an article, and it was pretty much the use. It was pretty much the term to refer to any audio blogging.
Mm-mm.
Nowadays, however, the term podcast has become almost synonymous to any content created that's released for consumption. I've seen and I've heard people call video streams podcasts. I've seen people
People
call
have called this show a podcast.
and I think it's just because the term, like how Colgate became any toothpaste you used to buy, became just synonymous to any online content created by smaller groups.
Alfred asks, what's the difference between a podcast and a talk show? And I think there's a lot of overlap. Like you can have talk shows in a podcast
Mhm.
format, like in a distribution method. But then not necessarily all talk shows are podcasts because it
Yes.
really depends on how you broadcast it. So if it's like a full on video talk show
Mhm.
that you watch on YouTube or on TV, then it becomes different. Then it's a web show or a TV
Mhm.
show, depending on it's about the channel of
Yeah.
distribution.
So the term talk show is the type of show,
Yes.
whereas the term podcast is the way it is distributed. Which is why you can have live stream talk shows, you can have pre-recorded talk shows, you could have televised talk shows.
Okay, Noctis says podcasts are handy for working out or running. I'm listening to one at the moment about Irish folklore. And I get that, but then in my case, I listen more to audiobooks than to podcasts.
Mhm.
So like if I'm just running or jogging, then I'll listen to audiobooks. If I am doing more complex circuit training, then I just listen to music because I can't focus on anything else that I'm listening to. Then I just want background stuff for
So
keep the pace.
officially, there was no specific format that defines something as a podcast other than the mode of distribution.
Yes.
At the time when it started, you had people who were in the radio industry who would basically do their shows as normal, but then have it recorded and released on the distribution streams for for iPods and the like. Later on, or not necessarily later on, but part of the evolution to that was people creating their own content, whether it's spoken word poetry or just online diaries wherein they just talk about life and the like, to more creative pursuits where people started to, let's talk all about horror stories and let's make every episode a horror story, to serial stories and stuff like Night Vale.
Yeah, and then especially now, like across this pandemic quarantine period, I feel like everyone and their dog has decided to start a podcast. But it also reflects that it's so much easier to do this now, and um, the fact that practically anyone can like get onto Spotify and upload their podcast for distribution, then it makes it so much easier. Where you're not limited technically to just the Apple environment
Mhm.
to load your show onto an Apple Pod device. Now it's pretty more widespread. So I think that's really helped push things along. That the barriers to creating it are lower, and then and yeah. So some would argue like this show could become a podcast if we decided to release an audio only version on Spotify or wherever else you listen to podcasts.
Now, Wikipedia does list a vodcast or a video podcast,
Yeah,
We're
it's
in
like
it,
vlog.
which basically has video content. And I think that's basically it. That the idea that as a distribution method for podcasting, when video now was something they were also releasing, they still connected it to podcasts because podcast as a term was not how it was prepared, but how it was released.
Yeah,
And eventually, that's where the mix up and the confusion happens. Many people now call any small format creative work as podcasts. You make podcasts.
and I
Whereas others call it streaming, others call it this
Yeah,
and
and
that.
I feel like podcasts have overtaken like the notion of vlogging, and then vlogging has gotten shorter and shorter, and now you just make TikToks or something. That everybody's doing very short informational video content as
Mhm.
TikTok video content. So it's a weird world we're in. But anyway, let's try to get through some of the stuff that we actually listen to.
Mhm.
And so I think my first foray into listening to a podcast turned out to be fiction, and that's why this stuff. That's why all this merch was the very first podcast that I listened to and got Toby to listen to with me
Mhm.
is Welcome to Night Vale. So Welcome to Night Vale. I should have pulled up information on it, right? As we talk about it.
The logo, right?
Wow. Yes, that does help. That does help.
Hey, Noel.
All right. So, if you want a definition, so Welcome to Night Vale is a twice a month, fiction podcast, set in this small desert town of Night Vale, and it's just super weird stuff. So, and it's done in the format of a radio show, so that you have Cecil, who is the host, the DJ,
Mhm.
and then he's just going through the show and narrating the news of the day, and all these different crazy things happen to Night Vale,
Yes.
but you only hear it from the perspective of this one radio announcer. And there are a few other things and here and there, but mostly it is just from the perspective of the radio announcer. And I love it. I super love it. I am not always fully up to date, but then I will have instances where I'll sit down and then I'll listen to like 3-4 episodes at a time.
Mhm.
Especially since in more recent years they've been doing a lot of multi-part episodes. That's like 5-part episodes, or it's like interconnected story, but it's distributed across several episodes. Then I wait for that.
Mhm.
And this is like the creation of Joseph Fink and oh my god, where's my listing? Um, But oh my god, and I'm not giving proper credit. I'm so sorry. Beyond that, though, what's this? Uh, um, Beyond that, actually, the Welcome to Night Vale group has created a bunch of other fiction shows beyond Night Vale itself, which is
Mhm.
kind of fascinating. So there's things like Alice Isn't Dead, or oh my god, what's the one about the circus? I can't remember. Um, so, and I'm trying. Sorry, Night Vale is created by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Craner. It's narrated by Cecil Baldwin, who is Cecil, the voice of Night Vale. Okay,
Mhm.
that's that context. And then, but there are other Night Vale programs already, so they're expanding, guys. So it's pretty cool. But Night Vale, I think, still stands out as like a great work. It's still super ongoing, and it's available everywhere. And it pays to start from the very beginning. You have to start from the very beginning because even though it's not one continuous story, but it's a lot of good interconnected stuff. And it's like reading Discworld, where you don't have to read every single Discworld book to understand what's going on. But there's sort of a continuity, so it's good to read them in order. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, that's way too much about Night Vale. Um, I also experimented with Serial because everyone was talking about Serial, and it was, oh my god, this good, true crime thing,
Mhm.
and it was interesting. I definitely enjoyed the first season. I wasn't as diligent with the subsequent seasons, but this was in the pre like Spotify period, so it was like I had to go to like Podbay,
Mhm.
or I had to go to the Serial website to listen to the podcast, and so it was a little counterintuitive for me. Yeah. So beyond that, oh, I should have just loaded my Spotify. There are a few podcasts that like I listen to on and off, but I can't
Mhm.
claim to be a faithful listener. And we'll just get through the podcast stuff really quick so that we can talk about other stuff that Toby and I listen to outside of podcasts,
Mhm.
but we treat them like podcasts, like
Mhm.
this show. Okay, so very briefly, if you're a RuPaul's Drag Race fan, there is some value in listening to What's the Tea, which is the show by RuPaul and Michelle Visage.
Mhm.
Which will include like there's always a RuPaul episode towards the finale where they interview the finalists.
Mhm.
That actually becomes a podcast episode. So that's a great cross marketing.
And there's additional content.
Oh yeah, so what you see on the TV show is not the podcast
Mhm.
itself in its entirety. So you would listen to the whole thing. I have a lot of Drag Race stuff. There is the podcast, which is a lie, which is just in audio format. It is the same content but
Mhm.
audio. But I don't think it's as fun because
You don't get the
half of
visuals.
is the on screen visuals.
Yeah.
But recently there is the Bald and the Beautiful, which is a podcast by Trixie and Katya, which is separate from the podcast
Mhm.
and separate from um, whimsically what used to be whimsically volatile, which is now Craig and Friends, which used to be the Katya's main podcasting effort after she disappeared from the public eye and then came back. I think it was rehab. That was her rehab period. So mixed things. Interesting talk show stuff is that there is David Tennant does a podcast, which is as um, it's as interesting as it sounds. It is David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, interviewing different
Mhm.
celebrities. Um, it's delightful. His Olivia Colman interview is great, and all these things. So that's stuff to explore. I think, and then the only other like talk show one, but I don't super faithfully listen to it yet. Is was this Russell Tovey does an art
Mhm.
podcast called Talk Art, and it now has a book and everything. So for those who are familiar with Russell Tovey, beyond the fact that he's that cute guy, he's super into art, and he has a podcast all about art. Um, and then the other like interview format which is good. Was this it helpful if you are fans of The Expanse? If you watch The Expanse and you notice that they did an after show on YouTube with one of the writers of the original books and the guy who plays Amos.
Mhm.
So that has turned into a podcast, which is now Ty and that guy. So it's Wes Chatham and Ty Frank,
Mhm.
and they talk about the sort of behind the scenes or different stuff about The Expanse, but they compare it to different elements of science fiction, popular science fiction. So the very first episode talks about the origins of the Expanse and compares it to their love of Alien, the original Alien movie. It's quite compelling. It includes the story about the fact that this Expanse started as a role playing game session. Many of the character names are based on what the actual characters were named in the game. And in honor of the people who played that game, he retained the names. So Amos, Holden, the player characters, that's really them. And if you remember, spoiler alert for season 1, in like the 4th episode, there's a character who dies very violently. He was a player character who had to bow out of the game, and he told Ty like he has to quit, and so they contrived this awesome death scene for him, which became part of the book. It became the movie. So I like this sort of thing. Okay.
So Kenny asks,
Have you
have you
tried
tried Sibling Rivalry,
by-
Bob the Drag Queen and Monet X-Ray?
I tried it a few times because there was a time I tried to hunt down the one episode of the podcast where they mentioned going to Obar. There is one, and now I can't remember what it is. If you support their Patreon, you get it as a full video experience. If you don't, and you just listen to YouTube or on Spotify, then it's just audio, which is okay. It's fine. It's like it's not my main cup of tea. It gets a little tiring. Jay says what he likes about podcasts more than YouTube is I don't tend to binge as much, and I can do other things while listening. With video, kasi I miss a lot if I'm not looking. And this is where like Toby and I will contest, or it depends on what you're listening to.
Yes.
There are a lot of video essay style YouTube content that I think Toby and I both treat as background material.
Yes. And it's not that we don't need to see the visuals, but the writing is strong enough that the visuals are a nice added layer, but not necessary.
And there are like some of these video essay people that the video element is really just super supplementary. It's just like in jokes and whatnot, and like very funny reference material, but it's just helping to illustrate what they're saying. But yeah, so that's I think that's where the bulk of this. I'll still jump back to a few podcasts or a few YouTube things that have podcasts. So Toby, what would you highlight first as something you listen to?
So mine, I don't have that many, only because I don't really have that many.
I think you go random.
Yeah,
you just
I'm
keep
very
YouTube
random.
playing.
I'm very topic driven.
Okay, that's
rather
fair.
than brand driven.
Okay.
So I might one day, for example, type died in avalanche. And then whatever I see, okay, I'll listen to this one. Because it's all this information and ideas that I absorb for the games I run.
I think I must also clarify. Have you actually searched died in avalanche?
Yes.
Why did you search for died in avalanche?
You never know when it will come up.
This is the problem when your boyfriend is a RPG game master. Then everything is research for a story.
The few things I have been listening to, and I'll stick first to the ones that it's not the joint. So there's the writer's room, only because they've been doing an actual play of Seventh Sea.
Oh, how nice!
And they alternate episodes of story and game with episodes of talking about the system. So it's kind of interesting to see how they're approaching it. There's Victory Condition Gaming, which
Victory
is
Condition Gaming
because winning is not the only way to play.
They have a lot of diverse content. So
very diverse.
They do interviews. They do let's play. They
Yeah.
do
Actual
actual play videos.
Yeah, they talk about game reviews sometimes, or sometimes they just talk about different topics. Like at one point in time, they were talking about the Marvel movies and the DC movies, and it's good listening for me because I appreciate the thoughts that they bring up. And when they have their different guests, I like the different perspectives they bring in.
Yeah, and then it's the sort of actual play where you don't super have to watch it because really the actual play is just a Zoom call. It's just like everybody in their respective windows just talking when it's their turn to talk. There's not much other visuals going on. I mean, I know there are more like elaborate actual plays where it's practically animated sometimes. So this is not one of those cases, which is not a bad thing. It's like it's good stuff to listen to.
And then beyond that, it's a lot of this I don't really keep track anymore. I'll have to mention Paco's Place only because my brother's part of it. um,
No, but it's a kind of amazing how this thing's blown up. I have
it's
all the respect for Paco's place.
yeah, and they really cover a lot of Filipinos who can show up on their show or who can guest on their show and talk about how
And this is based
they made
in LA,
accomplishments.
right?
Yeah,
So it's like, I mean, it's in the US. So it's Filipinos in the US. But in Filipino personalities, like predominantly from the music industry.
yes,
So there are like some surprising, like, oh my god, they got this person to guest. It's the guitarist of this, it's the drummer of that, all these things.
and then
I'll let you guys explore.
I guess the last one would be Gallant Night Games. They have their own video channel now, and I've been listening to it just to get a glimpse of what games they're running. It's very new, so it's still very fresh. But that's pretty much my list. Because beyond that, it's a lot of material from whatever strikes my fancy. I mean, some of them is what culture, but it's not because I like what culture. It's just that they happen to touch on some topics that are interesting. Another one is the one that tends to have Metal Gear related content. What was it called? Futurism something. And there's fascinating horror as well, which is documentary style information about really tragic events that happened and why it led to that. Um, yeah, so it's stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. So Jay says when you're on mobile, you can't listen to YouTube while your device is sleeping or in your pocket. That's true, unless you like shell out money for YouTube Music or YouTube Premium. Then it can become a floaty
Yeah,
thing,
most
which is like, yeah.
most free stuff don't allow you to use it in better ways until you pay.
And then he used to listen to podcasts while commuting, pre-pandemic, and that's true. And the same thing, like I used to listen to more audio content when walking to and from work, and
Same here.
and that's predominantly when I listen to audiobooks.
Same here.
So I'm more likely to listen to audiobook than a podcast when I'm walking.
I used to listen to. Remember, I was going through the Murakami books.
Yeah, he was trying to listen to
And-
Murakami as an audio experience.
and it was fun because while walking, I'm like visualizing things. And,
Yeah. So, other things that we listen to, I'll start with sort of the ones that have dual content.
okay,
So, Shut Up and Sit Down as a
Mm,
YouTube
course.
show, of course, is like you definitely have to watch the videos because you want to see the games.
mhm.
But Shut Up and Sit Down has a podcast. And there, it's really just them talking about this and that games. It's really like this big news roundup.
Mhm.
And they have updates weekly. The length of the podcast vary wildly, but it's about an hour, I guess you could say. But if you want board game discussions, then that's one place to go. It's super helpful. Shut Up and Sit Down. Um, and then I also listen a lot to, which is I watch a lot of videos from. Okay, let me enter my theme park world. Almost all of my theme park videos, I sometimes semi treat as background things to listen to,
Mhm.
and that is the host of things, which include Expedition Theme Park, Yesterworld Entertainment,
Mhm.
Defunct Land, TPM Vids, and sometimes Bright Sun Films when they do stuff, and Theme Park Stop. Both Theme Park Stop and Yesterworld have podcasts.
Mhm.
And it's pretty good stuff, but it's really just a lot of like talking about theme park things. Theme Park Stop, they also cross post their podcast to YouTube, but it's really just the audio with the title screen, and it runs for like an hour sometimes. Yes, the world I mostly see it only on Spotify for their YouTube stuff. So that's like my theme park stuff.
Mhm.
Then
Then we go to your ship stuff and robot stuff.
yeah, so I have a bunch of science fiction content that I mostly listen to, although it's predominantly based on YouTube. So those are things like Space Doc, if you want things, mostly breakdowns of ships and military science kind of things. There's the Templin Institute, which talks
Mm.
about almost any. They talk about the fictional governments and organizations of those science fiction worlds. So they have videos about the Federation, about the First Order, and all these things.
Mhm.
And then there's wait, let me look at my YouTube stuff. I feel like I'm missing something.
Space stuff.
I already talked about Space
Yeah.
Doc, but yeah, it's mostly Space Doc now, and and that other one. And then so the Templin Institute. Noel is here. He listens to Messed Up Origins, but on YouTube. Should try listen to podcast too.
Mm.
See, a lot of us end up like listening to YouTube stuff as audio content, which is why YouTube thinks that they can get us into YouTube music.
And then I think there was that time we nearly tried Drunken History.
That wasn't me. That was you.
How about that other one? The one you watch where the guy tries to break the game.
Oh, okay. That one you kind of want to watch it. There is a YouTube channel called where's that? I have a lot of subscriptions. I'm so sorry. It's like Let's Play. Where is it? Wait. Now I have to find the guy. There, Let's Game It Out. Sorry. The channel is Let's Game It Out.
Mm.
You can watch it, but it gets a little repetitive. But basically, his goal is that he plays a bunch of simulation games and he tries to do ridiculous things to see if he can break the game. For example, it's like Planet Zoo, but I want to make all the animals miserable. And then he will contrive it in that manner. Or he'll be like, he's playing a factory game, and how can I make a world that is all a factory, but it's inefficient conveyor belts? Then you do that. It's half listen, half watch. I listen to a lot of video essays about entertainment and writing. This includes YouTube channels like Just Right, Captain Midnight, Nerd Writer. So it's like listening to TED Talks. Really, they have audiovisual support, but then like you can go on its own. Oh, and related, there's Trexpertise, which is he only talks about Star Trek, but it's mostly stuff you can just listen to because all the footage they flash is just like clips from the shows and the movies, and you don't need to super get into it. On a related note, and this is what Toby introduced to me, is Lindsay Ellis. So Lindsay Ellis does some amazing video essays on movies, really
Theater.
dissecting into theory, into concept, and then has done recently weird diversions into pop culture moments like the Omegaverse, which is like the video that we first watched. And oh
the
my
Cats
god,
movie, Game of Thrones. Oh, that was such a good episode.
yeah. So and then recently she kind of got canceled on Twitter, and she did a video about getting canceled. And oh my god, it is
Awesome.
a brilliant dissection of cancel culture.
Yes.
And the evil woes of it.
If
And
there, I dare say if there's one thing you'll try watching that's new, Lindsay Ellis.
Lindsay Ellis. Yeah.
So worth
She
it.
doesn't have a lot of content. Like each of her videos takes a long time to create. You can tell. And her
They're
average
substantial.
in the last year or so, her average video length is about an hour. You know, whereas we were watching some of her earlier movie essay ones, and then they were just like 30 minutes.
And it's not
it's gotten
30
longer.
minutes of fillers. It's not 30 minutes of
jokes
just
and whatnot.
nonsense. It's meaty.
It's a
30
lot
minutes.
of complex discussion. Oh, I forgot theme park history. Okay, so Star Wars Explained. I don't watch Star Wars Explained as much as I used to. It's not as fun anymore. Okay. Other things that you could possibly listen to if you play YouTube as a YouTube thing is I listen to Toy Galaxy. So Toy Galaxy, it's all about mostly dissects toys, but then he also does a lot of history of shows for cartoons that were created to support toys, which, spoiler alert, is almost everything released since the 80s. So it's a lot of good nostalgia fare and great stuff. Okay, Jay shares, he mostly is the technical and business podcast, and while having a video element of the content, all I need to know, I just extract from the audio, like while I'm in the shower. And I get that. I don't really listen to a lot. I mean, there are straight up courses that I have sort of consumed in that manner, where I just listen to the material. Like I've done like Google Analytics supplementary training that way.
Mhm.
And I just go back every time because most of it I understand, but then sometimes I just want to listen to it while working. So I get that. I get that principle. But I think a lot of times, um, because of like what I like, then more of my podcast style engagement is with fiction because I like audiobooks, and
Mhm.
then it's pop culture because it's just I like the history of things, and I keep slowly adding more of these history style uh, breakdowns and whatnot, which kind of defines my YouTube videos. And so it's funny because a lot of these YouTube things I listen to while working. Like I have it on another tab, but I'm not working at the tab because I'm working on reports and decks and whatnot. And then I just have these things playing, um, which makes for fun analysis.
Yeah.
Noel plays YouTube in the shower. So does Toby.
Yeah, me, I use it to also time my showers. So let's say I know I have 10 minutes to get ready. Then I'll find something to play that's less than 10 minutes. So I know if it ends before I'm done, then I'm taking too long. So it's that sort of timer for me. What else? Because I'm really topic driven, so I don't really have listed specific spots. Because like
Yeah.
I love looking for material where they dissect movies or they talk about certain ways they shot certain scenes. But I don't have a specific one I keep going back to.
Ooh, that makes me miss every Cena painting,
Yes,
which is
that
now
was
a defunct
nice.
video channel. But that one, it's more movie video essays. It's one of the first ones I used to listen to, but it's no longer like no longer releasing episodes, but it's still very good. Like you can still go over it, but admittedly, the visual component is very important because of the fact that it is every frame a painting. It is about talking about the whole art of film and how it is used to support storytelling. So yeah, that's not the best example. Um, I'm skimming through the rest of my. Oh, there's like Transformer stuff that I listen to. There's a guy named Chris McFeely who
Mm.
does a bunch of factoid videos about Transformers, which are called the basics. So it's the basics of like Soundwave, the basics of Optimus Prime. So that's a lot of fun stuff. What else do they? I'm double checking my YouTube subscriptions. um, yeah, I think that's the extent of it from like things to listen to. Noel also uses it now for timing hair color. That works. That works. So I'm more then like for the few people who are on. Okay, not that few. There are quite a number of you. We also want to hear from you. Like, what do you listen to? So, like Jay, you talk about listening to technical and business podcasts. Then, what businessy podcasts
Mhm.
would you recommend that we try listening to? Okay, so Jay's like, I think what makes a good podcast is when they're focused for audio only consumption, like what Toby mentioned earlier. They need to be able to catch your attention without
Mhm.
the video element. Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of the video essays that really stand out for us um, are the ones that we don't watch, are
Mhm.
the ones that we can leave on while both of us are doing our own thing on our respective computers. Like Toby can be writing, I can be blogging, um, and then there goes on.
Yeah, so I'm peeking at what Noel mentioned as messed up. What was that? Messed up origins, and it
Oh,
does look interesting.
okay. Mitch listens to her Korean lessons. Talk to her in on the shower. Talk to her in Korean via Spotify. Oh, that makes sense. Noel also listens to How the Universe Works. He listens to it before sleeping. Oh, I
Mm.
like one of those like kind of general like factoid things. I do the same with like um, explainer type audiobooks.
And you had that Japanese snacks thing that we
Hmm?
used to play every now and then.
Okay, that's Korean.
Ah,
It's not it doesn't count as podcast fare because it's literally silent and it's just people cooking. So that's like different. That's totally different. So okay, Jay says it depends on what you want to know, but then like if you want to learn about productivity, you can try the Ground Up Show by Matt Diavella. Okay.
mm.
And real talk about business, the Gary V podcast experience. Is that like Gary Valenciano or it's another Gary who happens to have a V as a last name? Gary Vaynerchuk.
No, it's this guy.
Okay, okay. And what an unfortunate coincidence of name. What else? I don't know. Cause like I don't. This is man. Even our company has a podcast, which is very amusing to me. It is primarily put together by our content team,
Mhm.
our writers, and then they talk about their creative process and the like. And they we have no like oversight on this podcast. And I say this as like quote unquote a member of management. So then I like to listen to like what they're talking about, and it's quite interesting. They're really enjoying it, and I mean, from the very beginning, we
Hey,
told
Mina.
them like, if you want us to guess, then sure. Then
Mhm.
like, look, I haven't guessed it yet.
Mitch mentions before I listen to TED Talks. I used to listen to TED Talks too,
Same,
but then I kind
same.
of stopped when I had a few rough topics wherein I felt like they didn't really know what they were talking about.
I think in the beginning, okay, I'm gonna sound very elitist here, but in the beginning, when it was the original TED Talks, then like the hit rate of interesting, substantial content was pretty high. Was pretty high because you really had these like leaders of industry with very interesting insights. But then, as TED expanded as a brand, and then they needed to get more content,
Hmm.
then you have the world of TEDx, where it's like you could empower other organizations to like kind of franchise and hold their own TED style event, but it wasn't officially TED
Hmm.
Talks. And then so now your YouTube content is like blurry between TED, TEDx, TED Edu, and then a lot of it it's just then your mileage really varies. So
Hmm.
like I'm still technically am I still technically subscribed? Yes, I am still technically subscribed to their main channel on YouTube, but I really don't listen as much as I used to. So that's kind of a shame. Um, so Jay also shares as an overthinker, learning about Stoicism helped a lot. Now he listens to the Daily Stoic with Ryan Holiday. Mina says she listens to Shake Up Learning and Google Podcasts, but I need to do something while listening or fall asleep.
Hmm.
That's it. So you need to. It has to be. It's a passive listening experience, but you need to be working on something else.
Locally, there's LSD.
Oh, but then they're again these. Well, they're talk shows.
Mm.
They're Facebook Live talk shows in this format. They're
Hmm.
not quite podcasts, but
Hmm.
you could just listen to them. That's fair. So LSD is just Love, Sex, and Drugs, brought by Spaces Manila. It features Mrs. Tan, MC Black, and oh my god, who else is in LSD? Oh, and Eva the Queen. Okay,
Yes.
so that's something. They're actually Spaces Manila during their regular seasons has like live video content every day of the week
Hmm.
that you can just listen to, and it's like all these different topics. So they're not all drag shows. They're actually mostly talk shows during the week. So like on Wednesdays they do Herstory, which is like they talk to drag queens about how they started, and then I think it was the Friday one that was like about sex and drugs and whatnot. I mean, sex and sexual experiences and these things. I don't have a perfect list, but check out Spaces Manila. They have a lot of good stuff. Mitch listens to the talk show Morning Rush. Oh, do you remember listening to morning shows? That used to be like part of the drive to work and like
Yeah.
listen to morning shows on the radio. And then now not so much. Um, yeah, it's like I think the main time I actually listen to audio content is probably while I'm cooking or jogging, and that's jogging indoors, which the I like audiobooks over podcasts because it keeps going. And then sometimes I time myself that way, like my lungs are on fire, but if I get to the end of this chapter, then I'll feel better. But then sometimes like when I end the chapter and then I look at my distance, then
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm like not quite at 4 kilometers. So maybe I should get to the end of the 4 kilometers. Then it's like then you're dealing with the pasta sauce conundrum where you have some extra sauce, you add noodles,
But
and
now you
then now
have
you
too
have too
many
many
noodles.
noodles,
Yeah,
you
that's
add
us.
sauce. So same thing with me and jogging. And like, am I going for the next chapter of my audiobook, or am I going for the next kilometer mark? Because I like to end on a round kilometer number. This is how I do 5 kilometers in the house, by listening to books. Noel would listen to DZMM, listening to work. Oh my gosh. My my mom used to have, like, when we had early morning drives for work appointments, and I'd like accompany her for training in like some far off place. And um the goal, because we're all still sleepy and we had to be awake. So she would play music that annoys her.
Mhm.
So we actually owned a copy of like one of the Venga Boys album. I think it was the first Venga Boys album on cassette tape, and we would leave it playing full blast in the car, and it was terrible. It was so terrible. But when you're driving from QC to Kabuyao early in the morning, it definitely keeps you awake.
Yeah, I can't see any other ones I visit often in my history. So,
Yeah.
and then in terms of the older stuff, which I don't really go to anymore, some of the old stuff I have listed include The Real John Wick, This Day Must End, 5 Minute Tabletop, um, Amateur Board Gamer, Comic Brooker.
Oh, since mine is here, I am reminded another person that I listen to every now and then is Dr. Berg. So if you're interested in keto or low carb eating in general, and you want to hear someone discuss the science being behind it, Dr. Berg is your best friend, man. He has some great videos that explain all these different aspects of keto, and like why you should be drinking apple cider vinegar at night, and the value of cruciferous vegetables and all these things. Dr. Berg is good stuff to listen to.
Mm.
And then his content ranges from the very long to the very short. Technically, most of them are videos. So that there is like, he's doing something on the video, but you can just listen. Because more often than not, he is just using his super cool whiteboard thing all the time. It's like he can write on his green screen, and then he has notes or whatnot. And that's his content. So that's good. Jay says, I has a couple of friends who have their own podcast. Gerald Dorados, the Powerful Comicsman podcast, where he
Yes,
sometimes
of course,
features musicians.
Gerald.
Okay. Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, oh, like in terms of like, I have another friend, Polo, who is one of the three We Bear Bears. So they occupy a niche slightly similar to ours in the fact that we tend to feature the same drag queens. But yeah, that's another, like, they're mainly a Kumu thing.
Yeah.
And then they've recently started cross posting it to Spotify, so you can catch their stuff on Spotify as well. Yeah, they've been pretty much explaining it, and it's a lot of like very LGBT content, and very prolific stuff. Okay. Jay also shares the Successibility podcast by Lawrence Montefalcon, where he interviews successful people in their business community. Oh, cool.
That's
See,
good.
there's like so many things out there. I think, and that's really where we stand now. And I was amused that, because I was thinking for the screenshot for this, I went to Spotify, and then I wanted to see what are the top podcasts, and I don't know what they are. I mean, like, I've never listened to these things. The top that they feature is Sky Podcast with Chris and Slater. I don't know. Are they radio people? I don't know.
No.
Distractable by Wood Elf, Boiling Waters PH, Sleeping Pill with Inca, Ang Walang Kwentang Podcast. I see this featured a lot. A lot of people post this one. Dear MOR, the podcast. Our Daily Bread podcast. Of course, there's a ministry podcast. The Mindset Mentor. What are these things? 7 Good Minutes. Chink Positive. Oh, that's... Dead Talk Daily.
That's his
And
name.
Adulting with Joy Spring. And so there's like the first 12 that show up on Spotify's lists. And it's just like all these different things. Mina says, Thomas the Lawyer has a podcast in pala. Oh, okay. I'm not familiar. Jamie also have his podcast soon by Q4 this year. Magawa ka
Go
na.
for it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just stop delaying and just do it.
I mean, look,
That's how we started.
And look at us. We're like almost 200 episodes in. We haven't really grown a larger audience, but we're fine.
We're just doing it.
We're still enjoying doing this. We like being able to connect with people. So just do it.
And then every now and then I still get people who say like, "Hey, Rocky, I'm sorry, I haven't listened to your podcast." I'm like, "Huh?" Let's say, "Oh, Baduy Pride, sure." Uh,
Yeah, I've
yeah.
had office mates who are like, napanood ko yung isang episode. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. That's nice.
Bum bum bum. So yeah, I mean, like it's anyone's game these days, and they're. I feel like we've reached or have approached that point where we're pretty much at like a rule 34 for podcasts, where there is bound to be a podcast talking about almost anything you're interested in.
Mhm.
You just have to look.
And I feel, you might as well just do it, because not doing it will just be a lot of sana I did it. What would have happened kaya if I did it? And rather than have that, plaguing you for the next few years, then just do it. And then if you realize you don't like doing it, then stop.
Yeah, and then like or because it's like that trial by fire method where your things are not going to fall into place until you blitz it and like start. And your first ones are going to be bad, and
Mhm.
that's okay. People understand that it's an evolution. So that's fine.
Yeah, Noel, you can make your show called Nipping No.
Noel, I did a quick search for podcast on knitting just now. There is Pomcast, a knitting podcast, Make Good, a knitting podcast, Knitting Networks, Handy Machine Knitting, Knitting Tales, Knitting in English, Knitting Together Thoughts, While We Were Knitting, Very Pink Knits, Knitted with Grace podcast, The Knitting Thingamajig, and we'll stop there. But oh my God, Noel, you are not alone. There are so many knitting specific podcasts for you. Um, oh, Black Swan is here, and he's also part of a podcast. It's just which is just reading choose your own adventure books.
Oh, that's awesome.
Are you like reading them aloud, or are you just discussing the stories?
And do you need more books? Because I have some of the old books. I can send them to you.
don't pull them out now. Then it's gonna
Collapse.
deal with your tower of stress
Yeah.
behind you.
They're gonna
Okay.
collapse.
Yeah, so that's it's like anything. It's like even like I know I looked before, like what if I wanted to get into a Transformers podcast? Then then there's sadly there's a lot of there is a lot of
self-help religious ones.
transgender topics,
So
which is sad.
I think you have to go Transformers.
No, but this is already filtered to podcast. I'm sure.
Yeah, but
I'm
I
sure
think
they have a
toys or a movie.
they have a word. Yeah, they probably have a clever name around it. So there's bound to be something. And then like, what's this? There. My easier and input now is Spotify. I'm sure there's Google Podcasts for other people who like content there. Um, there's Sodium Exposure talking about games and geekery. Yeah, I've never actually listened to an episode just yet, and that's something that again, it's like because we don't listen to a lot, and then it's like even spaces on Twitter. I have not participated in a space on Twitter because it's a mobile only experience, and I do not do most of my media consumption on my phone. Uh, I'm old and I want to see it bigger on my TV on my or my computer, so I haven't gotten to that point. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so there's that. So there's a lot of stuff. It's a period of creation, and um, anything goes, man. At the same time, I think we're all seeing along with podcasts, we're seeing a rise of streamers, and there's like everyone and their dog doing video game streams, which are interesting. And then some of them are evolving their video game streams into talk shows, and so many things. Black Swan is like we read and banter. We only have a few episodes out. Hey, that's not a problem. At least you got started, and then just keep going. It's like Baduy Pride initially started like we just wanted something to do on quiet nights, and then it became a more and more regular thing. And then now we have like a full schedule going on. I don't know, Jay. I think my main problem with spaces is that if I want to listen to a space, then I'm gonna have to put my headphones on,
Mhm.
and then I exclude Toby from the experience. And then if I listen to it on my phone on speaker, then it feels weird. Then it's just like noise coming out of my phone. So there's that. And then it's ephemeral content. Spaces don't get saved.
Yeah.
So then it's like a TV show that I have to catch live. But then in this post DVR world, like who wants to watch things not on demand? And that's also why we do this show. We do it live, but then it's recorded. Then people can watch it at their leisure. So I guess that the way that we run this show reflects maybe how we consume content also. That we assume people are listening to it on YouTube while doing something else. And that's okay. Because we have no visuals for you. It's just our shirts and occasionally board game components that we take the time to bring out, but we have not created a setup to show them effectively versus other unboxing or how it's played type channels. Yeah, okay. So I think that's like the extent of what we can recommend for like podcast style entertainment. And you know, we obviously our experience is very different from other people, but then we wanted to finally address this topic. It's been in the queue for a while, and you know, we thank RJ for suggesting it. I don't know if this discussion will make us more podcast people. Like, it's not in my nature, but we'll see.
I know I also shy away from certain content based on who is in it. Because sometimes
Not shady.
because there are just some people I feel I can only take in small doses. So to consider being in a podcast where such a person might be talking longer, maybe not. But that's me.
So I think but the one thing I'd like, I guess, of all the things that I listen to, I mean, like then I go back to the fiction stuff, and then
The whole time.
no, we're back.
Okay, we're back. That's the second or
The second time it's happened, and it's both happened at like the 11-minute mark. So at 9:11 and at 10:11, we've had these errors. But at least this one we came back. That 9 o'clock, we came back without video. We came back as a podcast. So, whatevs. Okay, I guess this is Restream's way of telling us it's time to go to bed, or at least time to end this episode. So, yeah. Last thoughts, Toby?
no.
Oh, sorry. Last thing I would like throw in as a whatever. Last week tonight, the YouTube clips from last week tonight, which is the John Oliver show. I also use this as like something I listen to. And that in Masterclass, because we still have a very expensive Masterclass subscription. So I listen to lectures while doing other things. I'm currently working on Roxane Gay's Writing for Social Change. Ooh, very inspiring. She makes essay writing sound like the she is near. So that's about it. All right. I don't know. Did we lose everyone? I can't tell.
It's possible.
Yeah. So we'll just wrap this up. So thanks again for RJ for suggesting this topic. If you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, Altoby No Shade, RG Sunico.
You could also check out our blog, baduypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
Feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below and let us know, what are your podcast or audio content recommendations? What are you listening to while working? And has your listening changed since we're not leaving the house? Let us know. Be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride. Night, everyone.